If you think the bond market sounds boring, well, you're exactly who the system depends on to ignore it. But here's the kicker. While you were out budgeting for brunch, the US just spent more on interest payments than on defending the actual country. Yeah, let's talk about that before the financial lifeboats get too crowded. Hey folks, I'm Kevin with moneytreeandme, your favorite walking contradiction of charm, sarcasm, and cold, brutal financial truth. Buckle up, because today we're diving into something the media barely whispers about. The bond market is wobbling, and if it cracks, so does your 401k, your insurance plan, and ultimately, your sleep schedule. Let's start with a little fun fact. The US now spends more on interest payments than on the defense budget. Yeah, you didn't hear that wrong. The US literally spends more on interest payments than on the defense budget. That's right, we're officially protecting the world with vibes and hope. And when interest eats the budget, guess what gets squeezed? Education, infrastructure, healthcare, the minor things. Go ahead and smash that like button if you think that math should be illegal when it looks this ugly. And speaking of ugly, let's talk bond yields. Think of a bond like a government IOU, okay? You lend Uncle Sam money and then he pays you interest. When investors get nervous, bond prices drop. Yields shoot straight up. And banks start sweating through their three-piece suits. Now, since 2020, the 10-year U.S. Treasury yield has gone from under 1% to almost 5%. That's the financial equivalent of your grandma doing a backflip. It's pretty impressive, but it's probably a bad sign. Now, let's get into why you should care. Because rising yields equals rising skepticism. Investors are saying, we don't think you can pay us back without printing monopoly money. That's a real problem when your national debt is over $36 trillion and climbing, like it's trying to set a world record. And if you're thinking, well, at least unemployment is low, yeah, so you've just entered the most dangerous economic feedback loop in history. Since 2017, government borrowing has been off the charts, even when the economy was supposedly strong. That's like maxing out your credit cards after getting a raise. And I'm sure you can imagine it does not end well. If this is your first time hearing the phrase dangerous debt feedback loop, yeah, go ahead and hit follow. I promise the next phrase is financial regret smoothie. Now, let's zoom out, way out, okay? Back in the 1980s, US debt was about 30% of GDP. Now it's over 120%. Last I recall, it's actually closer to about 127%, something like that. But that's neither here nor there. It's just terrifying at this point. Now, back then, interest rates were high, but debt was manageable, right? Now we've reversed that. Interest rates are climbing and debt is so bloated, it probably needs its own heart defibrillator. Meanwhile, Japan, our financial warning label, has a 30-year government bond that's down 45% since 2019. Major insurers are posting losses so ugly that even Google won't show them without a trigger warning. And here's where things go full financial horror movie, okay? The Social Security Trust Fund, it's rapidly draining thanks to retiring boomers. To keep benefits flowing, the government is selling bonds. And you guessed it, those bonds are paying peanuts. Real interest rates are near zero after inflation. And the math says the fund won't last until we tax more, cut more spending, and borrow even more. So probably borrowing more. Great plan, right? Go ahead and drop a comment below if you'd rather get your retirement check in Bitcoin. Just kidding. Kind of. So let's go ahead and do a quick evaluation. The US debt is over $100 trillion. Monetary base? Yeah, way less than that. Meaning this system isn't built on money. It's built on hope and a generous helping of printer ink. The government's idea is simple. Inflate our way out of debt. But wait, today's inflation is already a problem, and the Fed's raising interest rates, so yeah, that tool's busted. And unlike post-World War II, we've got an aging population, fewer workers, and more entitlements. So That old trick, let's inflate our way out quietly, yeah, that doesn't really work when everyone's watching and tweeting about it. Basically, you're going to be left holding the bag if the government gets its way. Taxes are the #1 source of revenue for the government outside of printing money out of thin air. So between increasing taxes on your property, sales tax, income tax, and that sublime tax labeled tariffs, weakening the dollar while taxing Americans more will help the government pay down the deficit by using your money. This means less for you to maintain your lifestyle and more of your money for the government's spending addiction. And to think, reducing taxes for the wealthiest among us is a clear priority for the government right now. And again, who's left holding the bag? You. So what can you actually do? Well, I strongly recommend considering a well-diversified portfolio and investing in assets that will actually appreciate over time. So maybe some US equities and holdings through a broad and relatively low-cost fund like the VTI or one of its competitors. There's a ton of them, you can do your own research. And maybe some Bitcoin, because if this financial system was a house, Bitcoin is the fire escape. Then I'd recommend some real estate as another safety measure and cash for stability and liquidity. Though keep in mind, real estate can be expensive, go figure. So instead of purchasing physical property, when you're just trying to keep your head above water, you can actually just invest in REITs or real estate investment trusts. Okay? They pay dividends that are taxed as ordinary income as opposed to dividends on most other equities, which are taxed as capital gains at a lower rate. Now, that being said, you might consider choosing to reinvest the dividends you earn from your real estate investments in order to increase your equity. Also, you'll likely do best to hold those REITs inside of a Roth IRA to keep the government's grimy little fingers off of your earnings. You're welcome. Now, if you watch my videos, you already know I'm a huge proponent of emergency funds held in a high yield interest savings account. So if you're still saving money in a savings account at your bank, like your regular bank, yeah, you're gonna wanna stop allowing your money to continue to lose value by letting the bank pay you pennies on every dollar it makes while you sleep. No one knows exactly what's coming down the pike, and they certainly don't know how it's actually going to play out. So having a minimum of $10,000 or 3 to 6 months of living expenses stowed away and growing in a high yield interest savings account should be able to float you along through rough patches, all right? To open your high yield interest savings account, just go to the link in my profile and then scroll down to Wealthfront High Yield Savings Account. Go ahead and click there and take advantage of one of the highest available interest rates on savings today. Remember, you can always transfer your funds to your bank from your high yield interest savings account with no fees or penalties when you actually need them. But this will allow you to grow your money at or above the average rate of inflation so that your purchasing power doesn't diminish over time. So, hard assets like gold and Bitcoin. In today's climate, I honestly trust them more than cash sitting in a bank and just being eaten alive by inflation. And if you made it this far without pouring a glass of wine and crying into your Roth IRA, congrats, you're officially more informed than 95% of people who just say YOLO and click buy on meme stocks. For more educational videos like this one, follow me on YouTube or other social media channels listed at the link in my profile. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. I've been Kevin with MoneyTreeandMe, providing better security and ensuring better lives. Make it a great day.